All right, welcome everybody. Today we have local artist Duncan Kissinger here, and he is going to tell us all how to dunk naturally. Take it away, my friend.
How's it going? Well, the best way to dunk naturally would be to prepare. You don't want to go into a dunk unprepared.
No, you don't.
And I think that as far as that goes, anything I can say beyond that would just muddy up the meaning of dunking naturally.
Well, of course. Well, now that we've cleared up that eternal mystery, I think it's time to get to the meat of the show, which is, as ever, music. So, something you actually said before the interview intrigued me, and you said that in many ways you have been performing ever since, well, basically your whole life began. And talk about that a little bit, because that's got me intrigued.
I mean, there's a couple ways that could interpersonal relationships or performance, to some degree, but also performing. Just like it was early on that I realized I could do things that people would react to, and it was quickly that I started making the list of things that I did that had a positive reaction from people.
Oh.
And then I kind of went from there, and then I was like, oh, I enjoy, playing music, so I'm going to play music and see how people respond, I suppose.
It's always a good place to start.
Yeah.
And when did you really discover music?
It was around since I was really little. My mom would always play piano. I remember laying on the carpet watching her play piano. Always listening to music with my dad. He'd always be drumming on the steering wheel, joking about how he was worried that the airbag was going to go off. Yeah, so it's always kind of been present.
Oh, it was actually a lot like that in my house. My mother used to play Mozart and Gershwin on the piano.
Oh, far out.
And my dad had one of the most extensive CD collections I'd ever seen.
Cool.
I think I was probably like the only 4-year-old in Chicago who was grooving to Steely Dan every day.
Yeah. Man, that's wild. I saw Steely Dan with my dad a couple years ago.
Oh, yeah. Was it at the Klipsch Music Center by any chance?
Yeah.
I was there too.
What a show.
Yeah. Totally. And, my God, tragedy, since I think that was the last show I ever saw before Walter Becker passed away.
Last show in general, or last time seeing Steely Dan?
Well, it was the last time. It was my first and last time seeing Steely Dan, since they barely ever toured.
Yeah.
And, Walter Becker passed away just like half a year later.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, that hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
All right. So I've noticed that a lot of your style is very lo-fi, and I was just wondering, who would you say has influenced you the most in the development of your style?
I'm trying to think if I want to say Guided by Voices or list out Bob Pollard and Tobin Sprout, because they've both kind of influenced me in certain ways about that. But just the they really got me into the feeling of you don't have to have something polished. You don't have to have a song polished for it to be
totally
worth enjoying.
Well, I myself actually tend to love the unpolished feel, because I think that I'm about to drop a huge cliche here, so don't hate me for this. I think it's more authentic, and I think it really gives you a more involved look at the process. A lot of pop music is far too slick for my tastes.
Yeah.
And then again, I mean, this goes all the way back to just sort of the music I grew up with, which had that rougher feel.
Yeah. I've always just enjoyed the capturing the purity of the moment. How it's like, just like the way I record is really haphazard and air quotes lo-fi, just because I don't always have the best version of something to do the job that I need it to do. So I've just got all these things half working to come up with like 75% of something. And I'm like, oh, that's really nice.
Yeah.
But just being able to like sit down and record like drum machine, guitar, and vocals all at the same time, and just capture that, like headphones just like hunched over, just like, and then being able to listen back to it and having it sound a lot bigger than this, you know what I mean? And it's just an interesting way to play with the sizes of different moments.
Well, I think I was talking about this a little bit, but you actually do tend to have a lot of space in your recordings, and I like that. I mean, and you manage to do this thing where they're spacious, and yet they feel very dense at the same time.
Yeah.
And it's an intriguing duality.
Yeah, I'm really into it. I mean, that's why I do it. But like I really like the rich textures that you can get from different levels of antiquated technology, and that comes from my enjoyment of like the textures of like William Basinski or Philip Glass, you know, just like or Tim Hacker, you know, like I get these really rich textures from them, and I'm able to like emulate that through a lo-fi recording of a pop song where the vocal is so blown out, it just sounds like a, you know, handmade synthesizer.
Well, and that's kind of right at the core of lo-fi.
Yeah.
You know, it's supposed to sound like that, and the sound really is textured. Look at me, I'm just sitting here agreeing with you. So, I guess what we really want to get to now is your flagship album since about 2017 has been Make Time Stop. I'm remembering that right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And I've listened to that all the way through, more than a couple of times. And I have to say, it's definitely a very good album.
I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and we'll talk about lyrics later, of course, but I do find myself identifying with quite a few things you sing about. You know, everything from sweatpants to stomachs that are just a little too full of something.
Yeah.
But you said that actually went through a very interesting process, and I was wondering if you'd like to talk about that for a bit.
Yeah, totally. That was my first attempt at like being the band leader for a studio recording, doing my own songs.
Mm-hmm.
And so those were songs that had some version of lo-fi life before that.
Mm-hmm.
Just through some of my home recordings that I was like, this needs to be a full band song, this needs to be a full band song, you know, and I kind of went through the backlog of stuff I'd worked with on my own, and then we spent like 2 weeks just playing through them. I was joking that the angle that I was wanting to go for was like Conor Oberst of Bright Eyes, but doing Neil Young's On the Beach.
Well, one of my favorite lo-fi artists, Chad Van Galen, if you've heard of him.
Yeah.
He's really inspired by Neil Young, so it's funny how you have that commonality.
Yeah, he's one of the tallest Canadians I've ever met. Chad, rather. I haven't met Neil Young.
Neither have I, but I did meet Chad Van Galen at the Hi-Fi like a year ago. He was pretty cool.
Yeah, he's and he does all of his own animations.
I know.
I can't believe that.
He invents his own instruments.
Yeah,
it's crazy. Like if he
cool.
And he does the whole thing on like I think it's like a 4-track or an 8-track recorder just in his basement.
Yeah. And are you familiar with the band Women?
Yeah, actually.
He produced their records. He did them in his basement. The
Nice.
2 Women records, yeah, because they're both from Calgary.
That makes sense. Actually, it's him, Women, and have you ever heard of Zuzu?
Mm-mm. Oh, I've heard of it. I haven't listened to their music.
Oh, well,
but
Jamie Stewart is awesome, and actually he tends to get lumped in with Van Galen and Women a lot.
Oh, wow.
There's there's even a collaboration album, although they don't collaborate on any songs directly, which is a tragedy in my opinion.
Man, this feels like it's going to be one of those things where I'm going to go home and listen to that and find out that I should have been listening to it this whole time.
Yeah, he did do a more direct collaboration with Mersbro, though.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. I mean, that guy is just noise extraordinaire.
Yeah. So is the like Zuzu stuff? I feel like I might have heard that on like some old compilation or something, and it was like too dancey for me. Is it dancey, or am I making that up?
No, not dancey.
Okay.
Like some of his songs almost sound dancey, and this is more like early 2000s stuff.
Okay.
But his later stuff is like borderline harsh.
Cool.
Especially check out Angel Guts Red Classroom from like 2014.
Yeah.
That is an awesome album.
Cool.
Yeah, Stupid in the Dark. I think that's my favorite track off there.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, but we've wandered from the path. So
yeah.
So you were feeling some Neil Young there, even though you wanted to do Conor Oberst. And Bright Eyes is also a great band, by the way.
Yeah, so I was just thinking, I wanted to I didn't have a lot of money to throw down on it, and I wanted to maintain capturing the purity of the moment.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, we got one day over at Postal Recording, and I knew I wanted to track an LP in one day. And so basically we just did, we went through playing live guitar, bass, drums, and then I went back and did some piano and keyboard overdubbing, but most of it was just done live, and like 1 to 3 takes. And yeah, it was a really nice time, but it was interesting trying to capture, like just trying to make what I was making before.
Yeah.
With these new tools. I feel like if I did it again, it would be an entire, like if I went in to make that record again, which would be kind of fun remaking it, it would be entirely different.
Well, it would, and I mean, music is not a science, and there's no such thing as reproducible results with something like this.
Yeah.
So every time you step into the studio, you really only have a rough idea of what you're going to come out with.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. I was just going to, fanboy a little bit about how that really makes music for me, but you take it.
Oh, well, I was just going to say, like, I think that's part of the magic of, or just, like, having a studio at your disposal, or having the proper tools on your own to just record on your own, because it's such a magical thing.
Yeah.
And that makes me think I want to take the opportunity to try and throw a joke in, because I have been a comedian in the past, and I think with this I might have a future too. Aren't all movies a Marvel?
It seems like it these days. I don't know. I gotta be honest. I kind of clocked out a little bit before Infinity War. I just had some fatigue going on.
Yeah, I found out recently there's multiple Iron Mans.
Oh yeah, 1 through 3, and they may or may not make a 4th.
Yeah.
If I was Robert Downey Jr., I think I'd be feeling pretty tired by now.
Oh man, I would have been feeling tired before that franchise even started.
Well, I mean, it's amazing how far a man with Robert Downey Jr.'s habits has come. I mean, he had a serious drug problem in the early 2000s, but he would even when he was at his lowest, he would turn up on time, on set, with not only his own lines memorized, but everybody else's. But I think that might come from the fact that his father, Robert Downey Sr., was like an indie director in the 60s and 70s. He did films like Putney Swope and Greaser Palace, which are very strange.
Yeah.
I'll just say that up front. I've only seen Putney Swope.
Yeah.
But he probably got some of that discipline from his father.
Yeah.
And it would carry over because the guy really just fits show business like a glove.
Yeah.
Or does show business fit him like a glove? I don't know. I feel like there's a difference in there somewhere, but I couldn't say what it is.
I couldn't tell you. Yeah.
And it's a great point you make about just not knowing what you're going to get, because I'm a writer. I write fiction when I'm not doing this.
Oh, cool.
And it's funny, I can do all the pre-planning I want, but it's dead until I get this spark, and often I'm writing something that I wasn't pre-planning at all.
Yeah.
And it just kind of falls from my fingers onto the page.
Do you have a hard time balancing between valuing that and, like, I guess trusting that, you know what I mean? Because if you trust that impulse to follow it where it strays away from what you've set out to do, I guess personally I have a hard time trusting that. You know, is that lack of discipline, or is that some divine intervention where, this is the right way beyond this?
Well, often...
Does that make any...
Oh, that makes perfect sense. What often I find is that impulse, which oftentimes has nothing to do with the pre-writing that I'm doing, provides me with an impetus to actually get words down on a page and not feel like some kind of perfunctory exercise.
Yeah, okay.
I just feel something that's intuitively right.
Yeah.
Even if, whatever comes out is perforce going to be rough.
Yeah. It's out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's out, and once it's out, I can improve it. I can sand off some of the rough edges, but not too many. Which seems to be your studio process a little bit, though I think you're probably more disciplined than I am.
Oh my God, no. I have a real hard time with discipline, and it's not that I get disciplined often, it's that I have no self-discipline. I'm really afraid of getting in trouble, so I really haven't spent much time being disciplined, to my detriment, because what's it look like? If you've never seen it, you don't know what you're looking for.
Exactly.
So I just that's why I like recording, is because if I sit down like practicing or just like writing, I just record it. And a lot of times what comes out is good enough for me to be like, hey, maybe someone else would want to listen to it.
Yeah. Or, I've caught something here.
I've caught something,
And, now that I've got it kind of pinned down, I can examine it.
I live in a